Welcome back, pet parent. I hope you're enjoying your holidays this year. I know it can be a really tough time for some of us for so many different reasons. And so, even though I intentionally scheduled this week and next week to not have a guest on the show because I think most people are going to be just way too busy, there are those of us who still listen religiously to our podcasts and whether that is because you don't live near family or you have other things going on, you choose not to celebrate, whatever is maybe going on in your lives, I wanted to make sure that I had something here for you, which will still be here for whoever is, busy celebrating the holidays. And when they're ready to come back, this episode will be here for you as well. In the meantime, I want to remind you guys that I sent out, if you're not on my email list, you can get on my email list by going to, well, there's a lot of ways you can do that. One of the easiest ways is to go to any reel on my Instagram page. So going to at the Pet Parenting Reset. If you don't already follow me, please make sure to follow me there. But commenting notify on any of my reels will send you a message into your Instagram messages. And that will give you a link to sign up to be notified for every single episode that comes out. So I'll send out an email every week with just the information for this is what's on this week. I don't send out a whole lot more emails than that every once in a while if I am having a sale or whatever is going on, because I do one-on-one consultations for pets and their pet parents. So if that is also something you're interested in, I am so happy. It's one of my favorite things that I do outside of the podcast is to be able to help pet parents with issues with their pets. I love getting those pets and pet parents who are being proactive and trying to get everything set up so that they can hopefully beat the odds and, just be very proactive and preventative in raising happy, healthy pets. But most of my clients have something going on, a lot of leaky gut, food sensitivities, cancer, unfortunately, so many other things, so many things. I'm here and happy to help you with all of that. You can go to my website, jessicalfisher.com. It should also be linked in the show notes. If you are ready to book a consultation with me, by all means, please go ahead and do so. If you want to book a discovery call to see if you want to work with me, I do free 15-minute calls so that we can get an idea of what's going on with your pet, and you can kind of get a feel for me and how this will work, and you can make a decision on what you want to do moving forward. But as I was saying, I sent out an email to everybody who is subscribed to my email list that in the new year, so in the beginning of January, going live on my website will be all new packages. So previously it was like, here's the price for an initial consultation and we'll see how many follow-ups you need. That's the price for follow-ups. Well, I'm putting together packages because what I'm realizing, especially for dogs that have, I don't know what it is, the universe just keeps bringing to me dogs with very, very severe leaky gut that are on Apoquel, sometimes Apoquel and Cytopoint for extended periods of time. Sadly, some of these animals have developed autoimmune issues and cancer because of the extended use of Apoquel specifically. And so these packages are designed to support you through an extended period of time while we work together, along, of course, with your veterinarian, to really optimize everything that's going on for your pet. So those are all going live on my website at the beginning of January. And I wanted to let you guys know that. But when I was thinking of things that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because it's just me and you this week and next week, I had so many different things pop up. And this one, what we're talking about today, was something that I actually thought was going to be really good for the weekly pet roundup, but I just decided to share it with you guys instead. So one of the more recent articles that Pet Food Industry put out it's called Kibble Less Likely for Small, Purebred, Older, or Working Dogs. So this is kind of showing us the who, what, when, where, why, and how of nutrition for dogs and kind of where things are going, how things are. And This is all information that has been analyzed from the Dog Aging Project, which, if you're not familiar with it, Rodney Habib talks about a lot, the Dog Aging Project. They have so much information, and currently there's more than 40,000 U.S. dog owners participating in the Dog Aging Project. Scientists at Texas A&M University and the Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine are working together on this, and they have found correlations between dog food diet choices and various dog characteristics. So dogs eating diets other than kibble were found to be smaller dogs, significantly more likely to consume diets that are canned food, freeze-dried, commercial raw, semi-dry, or home-cooked foods. Conversely, the popularity of home raw diets increased with the size of the dog, making it the only diet type that showed a positive correlation with larger breeds. That makes so much sense to me economically. So for smaller dogs, which my dog Kimberly is a smaller dog, it isn't cheap, but it is easier financially to be able to feed a smaller dog like that a commercial raw food or commercial gently cooked food. And then these larger breed dogs, if we want to do fresh food, which you guys know how much I am such a fan of feeding fresh foods to our pets, doing the DIY raw is generally going to be the most cost-effective way to do that. So in this article, researchers wrote in the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association, quote, "This may be due to economic reasons, since it is likely more cost prohibitive to feed large dogs primarily canned food as compared to a small dog," which is what we were just talking about. It goes on to say, however, owner income was not associated with the diet choice, making this at least appear to be a less important factor in the decision to feed canned diets. Another potential reason may be that the health-related issues more commonly diagnosed in small dogs, such as periodontal disease or urolithiasis, that's a big word, compel dog owners to select foods with a higher moisture content, so uro, obviously the urinary tract. Further studies are necessary to clarify what factors influenced this trend, because of course they're not asking these pet parents in the dog aging study, like, why are you choosing this food? They're just collecting the data of what they're actually feeding these dogs. Interestingly, purebred dogs were disproportionately represented among those fed raw diets, whether commercial or home prepared. So it says among the 2,163 dogs consuming raw diets in the study, 1,391 were purebred, making purebreds 1.8 times more common in this dietary group compared to mixed breeds. In contrast, mixed breed dogs were more likely to be fed kibble than purebreds. Neutered and intact dogs also exhibited distinct dietary trends. Neutered dogs were more frequently fed kibble or canned diets, while intact dogs showed a preference for raw diets. I find that one to be particularly interesting because we're learning so much more. In fact, I just got the email yesterday, the day before I'm recording this, from YouTube showing like my year in review, and my most popular video on YouTube in 2024 was about the spay and neuter options for dogs. And so I find it so interesting that we are learning more about how detrimental it can be to remove any organ system, but here we're talking about the reproductive organ systems in dogs or cats, more so in dogs, because when we do so, we are removing organs that are producing hormones, and it definitely has an effect on our animals, oftentimes negatively. There are some, I'm not going to say there aren't any positives to spay and neuter. Obviously, population control is a concern, and there are some other things like pyometra and things like that. So there are lots of other options versus the traditional spay and neuter, removing those organ systems. There are other options in spaying and neutering our pets that we can look at. And I think when we have that mindset where we are looking at these other options, knowing that we want to keep these organ systems intact, we want to leave our pets the way nature intended them, these hormones that they need to have, we're also thinking about everything else going on in the body. And we realize how important nutrition is. So that is obviously a correlation in my mind. This study also highlighted life stage specific feeding practices. So puppies were overwhelmingly fed kibble at 89%, while senior dogs and those in poorer health were more likely to consume canned, semi-dry, or home-cooked diets. These choices may reflect a need for easier to digest or softer food textures as dogs age or experience health challenges. And one of the things that I talk to my clients a lot about, because I am a big proponent for a raw food diet for both dogs and cats, but it is very natural as we age. We just don't produce as much digestive enzymes as we did when we were younger. That's just a part of the biology of growing older. So sometimes, depending on the situation, it can be more beneficial to switch to a cooked food or at least to add digestive enzymes into the food. So it is interesting to me to see like these trends, because I know this, you listening to this may also know this, but we don't do the same thing for our dog their entire life, which is completely contradictory to what the kibble companies are telling us, right? They're like, feed this food to your dog from birth to death, right? Like they have this one food that they never want you to stray away from. And all of that is marketing. 100% of that is marketing. We absolutely want to cater to and adjust throughout our dog or cat's lives to make sure that we are giving them what they need to thrive. And so it's actually really kind of cool for me to read this and see that pet parents are starting to understand this. We're starting to, I don't want to say ignore all of that marketing, but we're starting to realize that it is marketing. Kim agrees.
Thank you.
Kim agrees. So we're starting to realize that instead of listening to, this is how it's always been done, so this is the way I need to do it, we're actually paying attention to our pets and making adjustments based on their needs versus what some corporation is saying that our dog needs, right? We're looking at the animal in front of us and saying, yes, I need to make adjustments for you in this period of your life. And I love that. So let's see. Activity levels further influence dietary choices, with active dogs being more likely to consume home prepared raw diets and sedentary dogs tending toward canned or home cooked options. Purpose-driven feeding patterns emerged as another important trend. Dogs primarily used for agility or breeding were more likely to consume raw diets, 15% for both commercial and home raw. Working dogs favored home raw diets at 6%, while service dogs leaned toward commercial raw options at 8%. However, kibble remained the most common diet across all purposes. That's still sad, but I understand it. Also, organic diets were more commonly reported for freeze-dried, raw, both commercial and home-cooked and semi-dried diets. Meanwhile, grain-free diets were more prevalent among freeze-dried, raw, and home-cooked options compared to kibble or canned varieties. So obviously, this is important information for the pet food industry, like as a whole, but also for somebody like me in my position, like understanding pet parents and their needs. So that's one of the things that I do. I talked to you a little bit on the discovery call, that free 15-minute call I talked about at the beginning, about like what your needs are and what you would prefer. My first question when we talk about food is always, do you want to buy it or do you want to make it? That's the first thing we have to decide. And it doesn't have to be all of one and none of the other. We can always do a combination. I actually like to do a combination because more variety and more rotation is always a good thing. So that's the first thing we have to decide, and understand that can change. Like we can have a season of life where right now, for me, for instance, I buy everything for my pets because I just don't have the time to put into it. But the reality is, and I know I've said this so many times, so forgive me for sounding like a broken record, but it doesn't matter what we're talking about, we always have to make the decision, am I going to put time into it or am I going to put money into it? And that can change, right? So right now I'm having to put money into it because I don't have the time to put into it. Hopefully at some point I will have more time to put into it, and that way I can cut back on the money that I'm putting into it. But that's always what we have to figure out. And that's not something I can tell you. That's something you have to figure out for yourself. And I'm not judging you for it one way or the other because I know that it can and will change. And that's okay. We just have to make that decision for right now. Now, once we get into like the full consultation, you've said, "Yep, this is for me." You resonate with me. What you want to do, the things that you're talking about absolutely resonate with me. I want to improve my dog's overall health span. Let's go ahead and book this consultation. You book the consultation and we meet for that, 45 to 60 minutes. We're going to get more in depth on so many things going on with your animal, depending on what's going on with your animal. And when we specifically do talk about food, we're going to talk so much more about making it home or buying it. And then if we're going to make it, are we going to do raw or are we going to do cooked? And again, we can mix those things. I'm totally fine with that. There's so many, of course, we'll get into supplementation if we need to supplement. I'm not the biggest fan of supplementing. I like to do as much with food as possible. But there absolutely are cases that we do need to use targeted supplementation for a period of time. And I'm happy to help you with that. I'm happy to help you through that period of time and figure out when it's a good time to pulse, when it's a good time to stop, there's so many different factors going into supplementation that I find a lot of people they have this list of supplements that they have their dog on, and they've been giving this dog these same supplements for years. And it's like, okay, well, one, do we know if they're even still working? You're giving them so many things. You've been giving them for so long. Let's cut back. Let's find out if they're even still working for your dog. And that's not to say that something amazing like an omega-3 supplement isn't going to be quote unquote working for your dog, but we may want to pulse it. We may want to change the amount. We may want to change the source of that omega-3. There's a lot of education involved in what I do, and I love doing that for you guys on an individual basis because, again, I know I've told you this podcast is like my favorite thing in the world that I do, but I can only really give you like generalized information because I don't have a specific case in front of me. And it is my favorite thing to do to customize and individualize everything I do specifically for your pet, because that is the best way to optimize your pet's health span, is to actually work with the dog or the cat that's right there in front of you. So I just thought that was a really interesting article. There was another article from Pet Food Industry showing how human demographics influence dog food choices, which we weren't talking about with that last study because they didn't have the human demographics. So this was the very next day. Pet Food Industry published another post saying, again, kibble remained king of dog food, and a survey of over 40,000 dog owners conducted from January 2020 to December 2022, the preference for kibble persists across income levels, education, and geographic locations, or even when recent diet changes had occurred. However, human demographics were correlated to the use of dog food types other than kibble. The surveyed dog owners were participants in the Dog Aging Project and scientists at Texas A&M University and Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine analyzed their responses. So when we look at the demographics, the income demographics, it says kibble remains the staple regardless of income with 81 to 85% consistency. However, owners earning $180,000 or more were slightly more inclined toward commercial raw diets. The age demographics, older owners tended to diversify beyond kibble, favoring canned, freeze-dried, and home-cooked diets. In contrast, younger owners, ages 18 to 24, overwhelmingly preferred kibble at 91%. The education demographics, it says while education level generally did not influence diet choice, specific trends emerged. Owners with some college or trade education were more likely to feed home cooked or commercial raw diets, though these differences were minimal. And then with the location demographics, it says regional differences were notable. Dogs in rural areas were more likely to consume home raw diets, while commercial raw diets were more prevalent in urban settings. Kibble was less popular in coastal states compared to inland areas. So there's a lot of information to be had when we collect data like this, like the Dog Aging Project has. It says the majority of survey participants fed kibble as their dog's primary format, with 82%, which is over 33,000. This far surpassed other options, including home-cooked meals at 4%, canned food at 4%, commercial raw diets at 4%, home-prepared raw at 2%, freeze-dried at 2%, and semi-dry diets at 1%. Although kibble was the main dish, 35% of owners supplement their dog's diet. Canned food led this category at 32%, followed by home-cooked meals at 21%, and additional kibble at 17%. Grain-free diets were reported in 40% of dogs, with no significant variations across income levels. Organic diets, however, were fed to only 20% of dogs, again showing little correlation with income. So there's so much there to learn. There's so much information and data that we can pull from. I just find it so interesting, and I'm very curious as to what you're feeding and why. Because obviously, finances are a concern, which is why a lot of times I will transition people to home cooked diets, because it is often one of the cheaper ways that we can drastically improve our dog and cat's health span. So with that, again, I'm just going to remind you one more time, check out my website, jessicalfisher.com. I will be posting all new packages in January. So if you want to take advantage of the single consultation rate that I have right now, please go ahead and do that. And I'm hoping you're having a fabulous holiday season, regardless of what you're doing. Hopefully you are taking some time to find joy with you and your pets. And I will talk to you again next week, which will be just before New Year's. And in the new year, we will be coming back with some more guest episodes. So with that, again, I hope you're having a fabulous, fabulous day. Thank you so much for being here. Give your pets some extra love from me, and I will talk to you next